We will not surrender to the orders of those imposing the status quo on the ground by complete force, specifically in Jerusalem. All the actions that are being committed by the occupying state in Jerusalem are illegal and wrong.
Let's bring in Middle East analyst and distinguished fellow at NYU Law School, Thane Rosenbaum. Thane, great to have you as always.
It sounds
as if Abbas is very serious. It's not just a threat. He's rather very serious this time around. But do you see it solely as a consequence of the demolition of the Palestinian homes in the West Bank by the IDF, the Israeli military, or has Abbas been frustrated for a long time with Israeli policies?
Tal, I think it's both, but guess what? There's something else possible here, which is how can you derail Netanyahu's bid for during the next election? This is a disaster. Let me take you back to the early days of the Second Intifada. This is before the Palestinian Authority provided security in the territories in the West Bank. This was after the bombings of pizza shops, Passover seders. The IDF had to go in house to house throughout the West Bank. There were battles in Jenin, in Nablus. Many of you remember in 2002, the standoff, the stalemate at the Church of the Nativity. Dozens of Palestinian terrorists had run into the holiest site in Christian life, and the Israeli snipers were outside the church picking off Palestinian terrorists for 6 weeks. One thing that Abbas was able to do, and it's been over a decade, is maintain security. The Israelis, the IDF never had to set foot for any serious amount of time to root out terrorism. This is a very serious thing. And so, with the election nearing, if in fact Abbas is serious, and in fact the kind of terrorism picks up like it does always in Gaza and has been prevented, thwarted in the West Bank, what will it look like if the IDF has to go back into Bethlehem and Jenin and Ramallah, and maybe an IDF soldier would be killed? This would be horrible. People think, what would happen if Israel now had to invade Gaza? It's even worse when it comes to the West Bank.
Listen, this is not the first time that Abbas has threatened to do this. He has not followed through before. But regardless of whether or not he will or won't follow through, whether or not, regardless of what he's done in the past, let's talk about what the implications are and what the effect could be here, because he's talking about pulling back and ending all agreements. What could that mean?
Well, this is the thing. The Palestinians on both sides, the Gazans and the West Bank, there's been no negotiations. There's been economic declines in both sides. There's joblessness everywhere. The Gazans sort of find another way to pick up morale by firing rockets. Abbas doesn't do that. He doesn't fire rockets. He does need to pick up morale. And it might be that that's what we are seeing here, something that is a very strong case. It's serious. It deals with not just security, it deals with water, right? It deals with other aspects where the Palestinian Authority retain their own authority over the West Bank. But remember, this is very serious because this is the West Bank. This is the thin neck of Israel. This is not southern Israel. If security collapses in the West Bank, we are back to the very reason why the Israelis needed to take back the territories after the 1967 war. We have become complacent over the past decade because the Israelis have not had to manage security in that area. You're right, he may be just threatening, but he may be also out of options because he's so irrelevant in the picture of Palestinians. The Palestinians have no leadership either in Gaza or in the West Bank, and maybe this is the only way he's exercising his leadership.
Thane Rosenbaum, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much, as always, for being here.
Thank you both.
Appreciate it.